Welcome to the Acrylic Painting Club. This video I'm going to be teaching you how to float. For that you're going to need a bucket with water. You're going to need different sizes of brushes from 3/4. You can also use several different sizes of flasks like 8, 10, 12. The size of the brush will depend on the wide of your float. If you want a wide float, you need a large brush. If you want a skinnier float, you're gonna need a smaller brush. Your brushes have to be good for floating. See, this brush is not a good brush. You see, this one has a better chisel edge. You see how it is a brush that is still good. You see how the chisel is it goes to a very, very fine line versus this one. I'm gonna wet it. This one is still, it is, but you see how the hairs are not completely, let me go closer. You see the difference between the two. Because this brush has been used a lot and it's no longer that good, but it still can be used. You will need a bucket of water, the brushes that I explained to you, and you need a wax palette. And it comes in many different brands. This is one of the brands, and it is coated with wax. This one is called Jerry Castaway Palette. And what it is, see, it's paper that has been coated with wax. You see the shiny? It's shiny. Okay. So this is where I'm going to put the paint that I'm going to use to float. And I'm just going to show you how I do it, and then I'm going to show you some examples. Why we need to float? Well, I have to tell you, we need to float because that's what we're going to do so that we can shade and highlight. And why do we shade and highlight? We shade and highlight because we need to create form. I'm going to show you my classes. This is a class at the second session of the Acrylic Painting Club, and for this I shaded in here, and I use the floating to highlight. So I use the floating to shade the leaves, and I use the float to highlight also the leaves. I'm going to show you my other two pieces at the Acrylic Painting Club. This one is for the second session, and I'm going to show you the ones for the first session. This is one of the pieces for the first session. This is the class number 1 on the first session. This is also for the first session, and all the classes will have from beginning to end on how to do these birds. So I put a drop of paint in here, and I'm going to show you first what I do with the water. This is the water. I'm going to put my brush in the water, and immediately after that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pinch and remove the excess, and that's all the water that I remove from the brush. At the same time that I'm pinching to remove the excess water, I'm making the brush flat. After that, you need some place where you're going to be floating, and you're going to go to your paint, and you're going to put only the corner of the brush, and you're going to start working. The brush has water, and you're going to start working back and forth the brush in the wax palette. Back and forth in the wax palette, and that's what I'm going to do is the paint it's gonna start moving and going inside the brush. And after you have worked several times the brush in your palette, you're gonna go to the surface, wherever you're gonna put the float, and you're gonna float. And you can go in while it is wet. You can go in like that, and you can go out and in while it is wet. But the best thing is not to overwork it, because then it's gonna start drying and you're gonna start messing it up. So that is with a number 14 brush. You can also use, see this brush, again, I am putting it in the water and I am pinching it. I am pinching it and removing the excess water while I pinch it and flattening the brush. The thing about this brush is that it has a short section and a long section. And sometimes students forget where they have the paint, so they can use this brush and they know that in the long section is where they're gonna put the paint. Again, I am going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth with the brush on both sides, and I am working the paint in the brush. And then I am gonna go into the surface and apply the paint. And you can go like that, in and out, if you want to make your float even wider. You can also take a mop brush and mop that if you want, and make it smoother. Gonna do it again. I'm going into my paint and I am working back and forth, and this time I'm going out because I want to make it wider. I want to make it wider. So I'm going, making wider in here so that the paint go farther in my brush, and when I go in here, it is a wide float. So a lot of teachers are gonna ask you about floating, and this is what you're gonna be doing for floating. I hope you like my video. Join us at the Acrylic Painting Club.